role of process improvement. Today, we're going to delve into how organizations can achieve remarkable efficiency and quality enhancements by embracing process improvement principles. Process improvement isn't just a buzzword, it is a strategic approach that can lead to better performance, increased customer satisfaction, and a competitive edge in today's fast paced market. Joining me today is Alice Strawn, an expert in the field of process improvement. Together, we'll be talking back and forth, sharing some of our experiences, discussing the challenges and successes, and exploring practical strategies that any organization can implement to foster a culture of process improvement. Whether you're starting your journey in process improvement or looking to enhance existing practices, this discussion will provide valuable insights into making meaningful changes that drive organizational success. Before we get started, I'm going to turn it over to Alice so that she can do an introduction.
Great. Thanks, Becky. And thanks for asking me to come today. My name is Alice Strawn. I'm a process improvement and change management expert. I'll use the term expert. I have a lot of experience in the area, and I really look forward to being able to share that with you today. I come from a pretty practically based background, and so hopefully helping you to see the importance of this, but also how easily we can facilitate this kind of improvement in your organization.
Excellent. I can attest you are an expert. I've worked with Alice. She's helped me as a client and working together. Very, very good at what you do, Alice, and very good at, once we get into the conversation, I'm sure that will shine through, but very good at bringing people together and getting them to the end point they need. So process improvement plays a critical role in enhancing the efficiency, effectiveness, and adaptability of operations in almost every sector: manufacturing, services, healthcare, mining, technology. It involves a systematic approach of identifying, analyzing, and improving existing business processes to meet either new goals or standards, and often with an aim of optimizing performance, reducing costs, or improving quality. There are several key aspects that highlight the vital role of process improvement. We'll go over these through some Q&A back and forth with Alice and I. Please feel free to put any questions you may have in the chat, and we'll try to get to those along the way. So I'm going to start with the very basic question, Alice. Why is process improvement so critical for a company's success?
Everything we do is a process. How we got out of bed this morning, how we had our breakfast, how we got to work, the tasks that we've achieved so far today, the way in which the rest of our day will flow, basically the way in which we live our lives and get things done, everything is a process. And so when we begin to think about how to make aspects of our life, whether it be personal, whether it be in our professional life, or a combination of both, when we begin to think about how do we improve that, we need to begin to identify what are the processes involved? Where can we dig in? What are the steps that I go through when I get dressed in the morning? What are the steps that I go through when I organize my calendar or my email? How do I do that? And when we begin to dig into those processes, we can begin to identify both what is working well and where are there opportunities for improvement, perhaps opportunities to do something new. But we really need to understand what is that process and how is it operating today? Not how we would like it to be or how we tell everybody it is. This is not a social media exercise where we make everything look wonderful and rosy. What we want to do is to really dig down into what does it look like? What does it look like after a long weekend? What does it look like when everybody's out of the office? What does it look like when the computer systems break down? What does it look like when somebody's off ill? What does it look like when everybody's away at a conference? And then we can begin to dig in. Okay, this is what really goes down here. And here are our opportunities to begin to look at how we might improve that.
Excellent. And it sounds like us as individuals or organizations, one of the problems they might have is we know there's so many things that need improvement. We know we have these areas that we can have better quality. So how do you start to identify which processes need improvement?
Yeah, identifying the problem is incredibly important, and then beginning to look at, what are the steps? What does this look like? And what's really important, no matter where you decide to dig in, is that you get the people who experience, touch, and feel the process every single day in order to get a real sense of what's happening. And there's two reasons why you do that. One is that they're going to tell you the truth. They're going to tell you that although on the nice, colorful graphic that you have that says that A is followed by B, that really only happens on Wednesday mornings. And most of the times it's B followed by A. And you need to know that if you're actually going to be able to improve. The second piece is because those who touch and feel the process each and every day are also going to be most affected by the changes you're going to make in that process. And no one likes to be done to. People like to be done with, and by engaging them right at the very start, they will be able to feel a part of the process, to feel heard, and to give you those really practical things that they may have been doing anyways, to be quite honest, because it's the only way they've been able to keep the process working the way in which you intend it to work.
Thank you, Alice. I think you've touched on a really good point there. Most organizations say, and I know they actually do believe, that employees are their most valuable assets. But sometimes they have the blinders on where employees are our most valuable asset because they're going to do this change, because we need their buy-in to do this change. They sometimes forget to know that they're your best asset to really understanding, as you said, that what needs to be changed. They live it every day, their daily. And so it not only gets their buy-in, you're going to be successful because they know the ins and outs. They know it in more detail than anybody else. You need to talk to them. So that's an excellent point.
And if I can add one thing,
Yeah, of
Becky,
course.
the other thing
Yes.
too is that, and I'll share an example
Hmm.
from some healthcare work that I did. That so working with something that was going to involve frontline receptionists in a family physician's practice, and working on one particular project. And one of the first things that we learned is that although this was one particular project that we were very excited about, that receptionist was actually also being asked to make 6 other changes from 6 other projects that were being done independently. So she actually had 7 changes going on in her work at the same time. And if we hadn't have involved her, we maybe wouldn't have known that. And so then we begin to think about, okay, let's be sure that we're singing from the same song sheet here, and think about being careful about how much are we actually asking this person to do all at once, and is there a sequencing to this. Also incredibly important. But if you don't involve that person, they just keep getting things pushed at them, and it's overwhelming, right? They can't possibly do everything new that they're being asked to do.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've established how many, processes there are in our daily lives, and how vital it is to improve those and all the benefits from it. And then even how, how do you determine which one? And then to your last point, how do you lock in on that problem statement and involve the right people? What's the next step?
From there, you really need to understand what's truly the root cause of what's going on. Most of the time, what we're seeing is a symptom of the root cause of the problem. And if we only treat symptoms, it's like a band-aid. It's like I have a headache, and if I take an Advil, I have treated the symptom of the pain that I have in my head right now, but I haven't got to the root cause of why I'm having that headache. And if I continue to have headaches and I continue to just use an Advil, I'm missing getting at why I'm getting these headaches. Same kind of thing in process improvement. Now, sometimes we will have to treat the symptoms. We'll have to put out a fire. We'll have to come up with a workaround while we figure out something better. But we need to acknowledge when that's the approach that we're taking, and that it's temporary. If we don't dig down, and we can dig down using tools like a fishbone, like the 5 whys, we can dig down even in terms of process mapping, where people will say, see, between that step and that step, that's where it all falls apart. And if we could only, do this, and that's really, once it happens here, it affects everything all the way down the line. Great, because now we're starting to understand where is it beginning. I often use the example when I teach people about how to do process improvement around understanding the true root cause. use an example of, you have an employee who is always late for work. So we say, well, why is that employee always late for work? Well, maybe they get stuck in traffic. Maybe they slept in, their alarm clock doesn't work. They forgot something. They had to go back. They had to, they should have made their lunch the night before. They could have put their clothes out the night before. Cool. Try all those things. But the person is likely still going to be late for work, because the root cause of why that person is late for work is they're getting away with being late for work. So it's a behavior that needs to change. You can buy them a new alarm clock. You can get them a pass for transit. You can suggest to them, put your clothes out, make your lunch, all of those things. But if you continue to enable them to be late for work, they will continue to be late for work. And the root cause of that problem is a human resource policy that probably isn't being enforced, or maybe needs to be created. So when we think about it, we want that system level. Let's get right down to the very bottom of it. One of the simplest ways to do that is to use the 5 whys. Just keep asking yourself why. Why is that person late for work? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And there is a magic. By the time you get to the 5th why, you will begin to say, oh, because nobody says anything when he or she is late for work every day. There we go. That's where we need to dig in.
I love that they use the word magic, because it truly is, because some of these process improvement strategies we use seem to be sort of common sense. So like, oh yeah, of course. But there is a magic when you actually verbalize those 5 whys with a group, when you actually write them down and document them, instead of just thinking, I know them in my head, of course, and you don't go through the exercise. And you can see it on their faces when you get there. So I love that you use the word magic there. I want to, you've answered it a little bit, but I'm going to ask again. So as we've kind of got a theme here, employees are the most vital part of getting to the success of this. And you talked a little bit about involving them and how that works. But what is the best way? How do you get everybody on board? What's a strategy you use to do that?
Yeah, and I would say as well, you referred to employees. In some cases, it's your clients, or your perhaps it's your customers who buy your product, or they're your clients, or whatever term you use for the people who consume your services. They also know an awful lot about the end result, and it's the end result we're usually after improving. So being able to collect data from them is incredibly important as well. But to talk about engagement, and I like the fact, Becky, you used the word engagement, not buy-in. Buy-in says, okay, I'll put up with you. I'll play nice while you're in the room. But when you're not looking, I'm going to use that old form. I'm going to use that system. I'm going to talk to that person when you're not looking, that I'll do change when you're around, but I'm not going to do it when you're not, because it was done to me and I really don't get it. And I haven't got time for this. And some of you are probably nodding and going, gee, I've heard people say that. Yeah, because we do, right? We all do. So true engagement means that not only do we ask them for their input, but we give them a voice in what the change is going to be. No, don't just tell us about what's true today. Share with us what I call your if onlys, because people who are working in a system that isn't performing well, in a process that isn't performing well, they have if onlys. If only I could figure out a faster way to clear my inbox in the morning. If only I could figure out how to prioritize my tasks better. If only. And I mean, we have those if onlys, but then we don't have an opportunity to follow through on them. So again, not doing to people, but doing with people lets them think about those if onlys. And then the other thing we need to think about is that I have to want to change. If you're going to ask me to do something different and you're going to ask my input around that, I need to, first of all, be aware that change is necessary. Maybe I'm the one that suggested it even better. I have to want to change for sure before you can begin to tell me this is how you're going to do it differently. If you just tell me this is how I'm going to do it differently, I'm being done to again. But if you build my awareness and my desire around what is going to be different, I am far more likely to do the work in the new way, use the new form, go to the new room, whatever the change is that you're making for me. And I'm going to really date myself here, but if I go back to when seatbelts were introduced, and I know many of you are like, what? There was a time when we didn't wear seatbelts? Yes, there was. And when seatbelts were introduced, and I don't know if this was strategic or just somebody's good idea at the time. So there was legislation. We had to begin to wear seatbelts. We had no choice. There was a fine if we didn't do it. And sometimes, even in our organizations, we implement change like this. You must have to use the new form. It will appear on your performance review if you don't. Well, if we're only look at punitive, then we're not going to be able to actually engage anybody in understanding, well, what is this new form all about? What were seatbelts all about? And so the way in which the seatbelt legislation was introduced is seatbelts save lives. Oh, wearing a seatbelt saves lives. I want to save lives. I'm now aware, and there were statistics to back it up. Survivability from accidents if you're wearing a seatbelt. I should wear a seatbelt then. There's my awareness. And now you can tell me what it is I'm going to have to do, which is begin to wear a seatbelt. Versus the campaign could have been put your seatbelt on or you're getting fined, whatever the fine was at that point in time. Seatbelts save lives speaks to somebody seeing the value in why you're asking me to change my behavior and wear seatbelts. And Simon Sinek talks a lot about this in Start With Why. Start With Why says build people's awareness and value for the change that you are trying to see to make their value, not yours, their value of the change. It will be adhered to yours, of course. And that is what will actually drive people to want to, because you need them to want to change. One of the examples that he gives is very functional around a product. So there used to be, again, dating myself, there used to be an MP3 player and an iPod. I know it's all on a phone now. MP3, think of it as being an Android iPod. MP3 player said, what we are, this little device, is that we're going to enable you to walk around with music. And people went, well, I don't know why I want to walk around with music. I have speakers. I have portable stereos. I have portable speakers. I don't know why I want to walk around with music. And I don't know. I don't get it. iPod at the same time said 1,000 songs in the palm of your hand. Oh, 1,000 songs in the palm of my hand. I like that. In my hand, look what I have. And so it spoke to the value and the desire for me to want to have 1,000 songs in the palm of my hand. So use the message around Start With Why. Why would I want to do this differently? What is the value to me? And then not only am I engaged in the change, I'm going to actually champion because I know what it's doing for me. And I love that, right? I want to be a part of where this is going to go from here.
I love it. And again, process improvement, the process of processing improvement has these offshoots that, again, maybe organizations don't often realize that all the things you just said will make that process improvement successful, but it also just changes that employee inherently. Now I feel purpose towards the organization, not just this one in process improvement. Now I feel engaged. Now I feel I'm value add, and I'm developing myself and I'm being heard. And you said it a little bit earlier, but again, it's success of the process improvement you're working on, but it's success of that employee, bringing them up to a level that you'll see in everything they do beyond this process improvement. So excellent point. I'm going to get to the natural next step is kind of like, okay, but how do we sustain this? But before that, I'm going to put on the employer hat and say, okay, so everybody, I agree, we need process improvement. It will, I'm sure it will increase our value. You've got me bought in on how it'll enhance my employees. But tell me, before I engage in this, how am I going to measure success? What is the best way to measure process improvement efforts?
Yes, and this can be a real barrier to actually having sustainable change. We say that we want to make things better, and then we make the changes, and then somebody might say, "Is it better?" I'm not sure because I'm not really sure what better was, and I really can't tell if it is better. So data is key here. If we can't measure it, we can't improve it. And if we aren't measuring it, we can't celebrate when there's a success because we haven't even defined what success is. So the other thing that's incredibly important in this is that there is quantitative numbers, things we can count, Quantitative data, incredibly important if we have it. Key performance indicators, outputs, volumes, wait times, all of those things, production times, task time, all of those things, incredibly important. But there's also qualitative data. How does it feel better? Was your experience improved? Do you estimate that this is better, that you have more time to spend on the tasks that you want to spend? Both of those pieces of data are incredibly important. And there's a saying that says, not everything that counts can be counted. We want to remember that, right? Somebody's experience, we can create a wonderful new system, and we've probably all experienced this as consumers. Somebody creates a new process, a new way you line up at the bank or whatever, or the line up at the grocery store or whatever. And there we are as the customer, and we're looking around and we're thinking, well, things are different here, and boy, does this ever suck. The bank is saying, oh, look, we've got an orderly line, or the grocery store is saying, people are reducing the amount of time to check out and all of these things. And we're the customer there going, well, this sucks. I don't like this. Nobody asked us about our experience in that new line or that new process or the new way we put groceries on the belt. And so the bank, the grocery store, whoever it is missing that incredibly important piece of information, which is, how do you as the customer feel about what we've done here? Because I'm coming at this from a different perspective, right? I'm on the other side of that counter. And so my qualitative feedback around, oh, that was faster, that felt better, I felt welcome, I felt safe, whatever it is you wanted to do, you need that from me. And so you need that from your frontline staff, and you need that from the people that consume your services. And some people will say, well, I don't know, I can only guess. Well, guess now, and then guess again after you've made the change. They're both guesses, but they're going to tell you, I think it took me this many minutes before. Okay, that's baseline. I think it takes me this many minutes now. Okay, that's better. And that's what we're looking at. And then what will the next step be, and the next step, and the next step? But we need that data. And the other incredible reason why we need the data, as I alluded to, is we need to celebrate when things go well. And to be able to say back to people, 97% of our customers now say that their enjoyment of interacting with us has increased. Hey, cake and candles, right? Celebrate that 100%.
There's two things I want to add, and they're both about you. So this is where, to me, in my opinion, this is where having an expert facilitator is key. People it is a barrier. They think, oh, we don't have the data. I don't know how to show, what I'm going to prove, what's the ROI, we garbage in, garbage out, all of those things. Those prevent people sometimes from starting a journey like this. I've had firsthand, you as a facilitator, and your success for us is asking the right questions, not getting bogged down. As you said, if you have to guess, though you're doing that every day, you're most likely pretty bang on in the time it takes or the amount it takes. So it's key to have a facilitator that can bring everybody together, that can pull out those right questions, that really have what data you need, and show whoever brought them in, this is how I'm going to measure success for you. This is your KPI in a very measurable and real way. And then the second part, it's the same thing, is people forget to celebrate success all the time. There's some, I'm not saying everybody, some people are very good at it, but typically it takes a really good facilitator to have everyone stop and say, that was amazing, or thanks for adding that. And that celebrate success is, again, what motivates people. So I couldn't agree more with everything you said. I do think it takes a good facilitator like yourself to get there.
And it can be very simple. If any of you have ever called telehealth in the middle of the night, the last question that they ask you after they give you their advice is, if you hadn't called us tonight, what would you have done? And in most cases, people's response would be, I would have probably gone to Emerge, right? And so that data gets aggregated and gets used to demonstrate the value of a 24-hour staffed by a clinician helpline to decrease the load on Emerge in the nighttime hours. So it sounds really simple, right? You just asked me, what would you have done if you didn't call me today? And often when you are on customer support lines, pay attention to the questions they ask you at the end, because chances are you're feeding them data about how well your interaction went today, how much time, they might ask you things like, based on your experience with us today, how likely are you to buy our product again? Guess what? You're giving them data that helps them to understand that what you just experienced was good. And why not? Firsthand.
Absolutely. I can't believe how fast this is going. I have so many more questions, but I just saw we were at already 25. It feels like we've only been talking for 5 minutes. I think that's a good sign. Okay, I'll bring it down to just 2 more if we have time. And again, if I'll say that at the end. How do we make it sustainable? So you've done all these things, you got all these steps. How do we keep it sustainable after, as we know, employee turnover is super high. We also know people are doing 1 or 2 jobs, so they like the process improvement, they believe in it. However, now it's year end and they have 5 other things to do, so it's easier just to go back to the old way. So what are some tips on how we get them to keep?
Yeah. So, we're talking about what I call sustainability, and sustainability needs to be in the project from the very beginning. There's no point starting out saying, I know how to fix this problem. We need to add 10 more people. How much budget do we have for 10 more people? Well, we can get 10 people for 6 months. Let's think again, because that is not sustainable. And I will also say that it's not a hard and fast rule. And I'm probably, I'm even second guessing saying this as bluntly as I'm going to say it, but rarely is more the answer. And if we start off thinking about more, we are possibly setting ourselves up for failure rate from the very beginning. So sustainability is key from the beginning. If we do this, will we be able to sustain it? Then the second piece is that we can't just announce today's the day we launch our new software and then walk away. Because if we do that, oh yeah, we'll have an implemented piece of software, check, we can check off that box. But we aren't integrating it and we're not supporting people as it becomes integrated into their work. And we need to do that. Just because we've created something new doesn't mean that people are going to continue to do it. So we need to do that good job around awareness and value that I talked about before. Seatbelts save lives, make people aware. But then we need to support people, understand what is it going to take for them to adopt this new behavior? What is the behavior change that we're looking for? Support them and support them through the change, not just at the time of change. Because again, otherwise we're doing to people instead of with people. And we want to have people feel engaged. And being there, being a support, acknowledging that change is hard, acknowledging that you're going to want to go back to the old way. I worked with a client at one point in time, and I keep using the example of forms because we all know forms are painful. We all know forms are painful. And so they had a new form and we said, okay, well, here's the first thing you need to do to sustain that change. You need to shred all the old forms. Do not have an old form anywhere in your organization, because regardless of how good your new form is, somebody is going to go look in the bottom drawer and find that old form and use it because it's comfortable to them. They like it, even though the new form might be better. So in some cases, we do have to do what's called a forced function, which is to say, you can't do it the old way because the old form is not available. Here is the new form. But even at that, you've got to engage with people, because then their alternative comes, well, I just won't do it at all. Well, no, we don't want that, because this form in my example is an integral part of what we're doing. So we do need to help to support you. People will fall back. We'll have this great period of change. Everything's wonderful. Yay, have the party. And then all of a sudden, I'll use my form example for a minute, the old form sneaks back in, or we go back to our old ways. And then we have a reinforcement and it becomes a bit of a roller coaster ride. And we need to anticipate that and be ready for that and support people to ride that roller coaster, because eventually it will smooth out.
Excellent. I This has been extremely enlightening. I want to leave a little room. I've got a little ending statement I want to make. So I want to see, I can see now how process improvement is vital, not just for solving immediate problems, but really for driving that long-term success and adaptability in an organization, which is vital in today's, again, fast-paced world. Any last thoughts before I give sort of like a closing area and a closing statement?
Yeah, the last thing I'd like to say is don't be afraid of failure in all of this, right? And sometimes we say fail fast, fail often. With low risk, I'm not suggesting that you know retool a production line and then find out, oh crap, that didn't work. I'm not suggesting that. But don't be afraid of failure. Think of fail as an acronym. First attempt in learning. And I don't know if you know the story of the Post-it note, but the Post-it note was a failure, right? It was supposed to be a strong adhesive that didn't leave any residue behind when it came off. It was meant to be used in the aerospace industry. It was really just supposed to be this clean. It'll stick on, but when we take it off, it will not leave any residue. So you know that idea was great, but it failed. It couldn't work. The guy's name was Spencer Silver, and he couldn't make it work. And he was like, oh, you know, I give up. I'm going to go look somewhere else. So funny, he had a friend named Art. Art was part of a choir at church. And these extra pieces of paper were lying around that hadn't been working. And Art had them on his desk. And he started using them as a solution for bookmarking in his hymn book at church. And it worked. He could put it on and he could pull it off, and it didn't take off the typeface. It didn't damage the book. It was great. And funny enough, Post-it notes are known for being yellow because when they were prototyping the aerospace piece, they used yellow paper. So when he used it in his hymn book, it was yellow paper. So that's how it became yellow paper, like a really weird kind of process. But somebody could have said, well, no, you can't use that for a sticky note. Like there's no way. It was supposed to be for the aerospace industry, but Post-it embraced this idea of it. And I have to tell you now that Post-it notes, there is 600 different Post-it note products. They are sold, they sell 5 billion Post-it notes a year. Failure is first attempt in learning.
Excellent. I love that example. Thank you so much, Alice. Now, I wanted to, so I think we've done a great job. Well, you've done a great job really unlocking organizational success and the vital role in process improvement. I wanted to tell anyone who's watching live or who's looking at this later, everything Alice has said, you know, especially in the digital first realm, we have a methodology of connect, actualize, and transform where we can go into more detail, or if you just have general questions. So we're going to put up the website here where you can just learn more just by looking at our website. We have a great resources on LinkedIn as well. But we'll also put up some Calendly details. So if you want to reach out directly to Alice or myself with specific questions, please do so. As you can see, we could talk on and on and on about this and get into some of our specific methodologies and areas like that. But Alice, you've really inspired me, and this is what I do every day. But I love talking about it, and I love talking about it with an expert facilitator who really knows how to get from A to Z, because it's a real talent, and you're wonderful at it. So I want to thank you so much for joining today. Any last questions?
Yeah, I think that, you know, if there's 2 things that are key, it's involve everybody around, make it psychologically safe within your organization to talk about change and to be involved in change. And that really means asking for and valuing everybody's input into the process. Fail quick, fail often, do it fast. Don't have a meeting with yourself. Think of ways, how will you know? You get into these very long involved conversations. Well, what if we do this? What if we do that? I'll play Nike here for a moment. Just do it. One of 2 things is going to happen. It's going to work or it's not. Both are ways in which you learn. Both are ways in which you will move it forward. So don't be afraid to try.
Excellent last words. Thank you so much. Look forward to our next adventure in our LinkedIn live events. And thank you very much, Taylor, for